Hey, Dr. A, thank you so much for these wonderful forums.
You're welcome.
I don't miss them, and they have changed my life. Um, I just celebrated my 14-year health anniversary, so I'm uh, so grateful for everything that I've learned through this time.
Good.
Um,
Congratulations. By the way, see if I looked at your, I showed the emergent process versus repetitive patterns. Okay, I would say that if we look where you started and where you are now, if we did a percentage, that percentage is fully reversed now. You spend most of the time, most of your day, and you've had life gets in the way. You've had family stuff, as we all do. Life, it's so important that people realize it. People say, "Oh, I wish they had their life." Everybody has the same life. It's how we respond to the things that happen to it determines the outcome, which moves us forward. And like what Jeff was saying, the more we put ourselves in position to learn and grow, the more resilient we become. The more, I truly believe the most important superpower you can have is psychological flexibility, because you can take the things that happen in your life, and rather than being the victim to them, now you're adding value. Just like the last lady, she wants to help so much, and you know what you can do, what you can't do, and now you have the breadth, and you're an incredible leader and coach because you spent the time. And what comes from you is love, not judgment, none of that victim drama stuff. It's pure love. And love, by the way, is the highest level of motivation.
Well, I've learned so much about that through this process. And I just wanted to tell Kelly that with her daughter, I've had a similar situation. And if you follow the pattern that Dr. A is sharing and just keep at it, it will turn things around, because I've had breakthrough with mine, and you will with yours too. And Dr. A, just wanted to ask a question and share just a little bit of an insight as a coach working with clients. The Habits of Health Transformation System I have found over the years, as I first read it and learned it, it just connected the dots so much in my mind and helped me understand what it was that I needed to do to be able to get into that emergent pattern rather than stay in that repetitive stuck pattern. And I found that, we all know that when clients come in, it takes time for them to realize the value in the Habits of Health Transformation System. Sometimes they say they will at first, and then they kind of, oh, it takes extra time, it's this and that and the other. What I've done lately is I've leaned into, there's a group of them that I've really leaned into and said, are you willing to test this out? Are you willing to feed the mind first and see what the body does after? And so we've set up this plan where they really lean into their life book and to the community and into our Facebook groups. And they're really working with me, and we're working on them sharing and using all these different parts of their brain to get the information in consistently over time. And I cannot even begin to tell you the difference in their success and what they're experiencing. It has been so powerful. And I just wanted to have you, I've heard you do it before, it's so powerful. I just wanted to ask if you could go through the science behind what happens in the brain that actually moves those neural pathways and helps to change that, because this is the pattern for change, and I'm seeing it and I'm living it, and I just want everyone to be able to experience it. So would you be able to just kind of do that again?
Sure. And before I do that, you just gave a perfect example of when I talked about what an emergent process is. Remember, I said it has a future, it's warm, it's connected, and it's updatable. You just described all four of those. And what happens relationally when we're when we're changing the pattern, when we're evolving the pattern, and we're working collaboratively, the fear, the anxiety, all these things that are current from the default future, which is the negative bias we have, start to evaporate, and we build the confidence and feel about it. And the way our brain works is, in fact, they're finding out now, even in your 90s, we have neurodegeneration, where we actually develop new neurons and new connections. And what we feed, wired together, fires together, right? And so if we're firing it, thinking this new way, just like Jeff was talking about, If you put something in there that's negative, that's not what you want, it will disrupt that and it'll create more of those repetitive patterns. To break those repetitive cycles requires us to have a desired outcome. And when we're focusing on the desired outcome, which is optimal health and well-being and being the dominant force in our life, what happens is we now no longer feel irrelevant. And in this world today, with AI and everything going on, these simple human connections, and I call it human transformational technology and have for the last 3 or 4 years, this is the strength of us working together, is that at a time when, basically Chat GPT and all this stuff can create all kinds of factual information, the heart and soul of what makes a human, the purpose that drives us forward is the part that awakens our soul and actually reprograms ourselves. So I talk about, if you have a negative thought going on and process, I always use the example of because it happens to me where I live in Florida. It happens because I have a 25 mile an hour or 35 mile an hour road, and we have some elder citizens that are going 25 or sometimes less. So I have to use it all the time. And I always smile because I use it as an example, but I could get into that negative space like, oh my goodness, I need to be somewhere. Or I can switch it out and put a positive thing in there. And just by doing that, what's happening is it's starting to program. And there's a halo effect in the brain as well. As we work on something and a habit that is emergent, it actually affects all the other areas. So in the Habit Cell Transformational System, there's 6 macro habits. And if you're working in small little baby steps on all of them, that's why, by the way, people right now, there's a fad going on with the medical weight loss drugs. And I think they really are a great scientific advancement to stop cravings, because the food technology industry is doing things that are full of all the things that create cravings, the Ruffles potato chips with the crunch and the salt and the flavor and the sugar in them. And so those things, for people that are highly susceptible, they fulfill a role. But creating health and well-being is something very different than that. It's actually what you're doing. It's learning the 6 macro habits, learning how to reprogram our brain. And then actually we have now videos and work done that show actually in live, watching those new synapses occur, where the axons and the dendrites are reaching out, and you have new neuronal patterns being formed in the brain. So that's when people get focused on their patterns are based on the past. It's repetitive things from the past. When you become emergent and that becomes your goal, you're creating new. And when you create new, those build new neural pathways. So no matter what happened in your past, what your mom or dad or environment that happened in your life 30 years ago, it's fine to recognize it. It's now fine to reconstruct it in the fashion that I learned from that. And now I'm going to build the future on. And every single one of us has the opportunity to do that. We just have to make the decision, stop focusing on looking back, because that's an anchor that's pulling you, and start propelling yourself into what you really matters. And if we look and see what we value most and use that as our kind of our compass, if you look at Dr. A, the symbol from my logo, there's a North Star there. And that's my goal. My goal is to give people the direction for them. That's not what I want for them. It's what they truly want for themselves, and to put them in that emergent process so they can go out and create that. And you're absolutely right. Your brain changes. It's dramatic, the changes that can occur. And basically, if you no longer feed those negative thoughts, that stored trauma, and you let that release, you can totally construct a new life and a new future.
I love that. Just that idea of reframing that everybody is able to do it. And everybody. I want to say one last thing. After we got the new 2.0 of the Habits of Health Transformation System, a couple years after, I read Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it's a great book, but it was so interesting to me to realize that all of the things that he was suggesting in that book, you have put in practice through this Habits of Health Transformation System. And I'm just so grateful that you're staying that cutting edge right above it, right in front of everything, so that we have the tools to be able to really serve these people. And it's made such a huge difference in my life. And I just love and appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Jan, so much. And, that reminds me of something I saw yesterday. So, I'm doing some pretty advanced skiing with my who's a great friend of mine, instructor. And we had just done this kind of a ledge and went off, and we were coming, and there was a gentleman that he was a quadriplegic, or he couldn't use his legs, and he had a little craft he was in that's got a sled and he can guide it. And he was going across and he came down to the lift right next to us, in parallel to us. And he had this big smile on his face. And he's out doing it, you know, and having fun. He's not letting the limitations in his life get in the way. It's pretty cool.
Love that.
Thanks.